Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome on into the Swear Word. I'm your host, Brandon Swear, and hey, this is a podcast for the chili head community, by the chili head community. Regardless of your spice tolerance, this is the place for you. Up tonight, we have an amazing episode ready to go. We have a growers edition once again kicking off and continuing forward, as well as diving into a few other areas and just things of enjoyment, as well as we have 3 sauces on deck for Hot or Not tonight. So episode 146 starts now. What's going on, Swear Nation? So glad to have everyone here. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, or Apple Podcasts, thank you so much for being here and continuing to make this podcast what it is. Continue to share this out with other like-minded chili heads or individuals that are curious about the world of hot, because this is where you can find everything to do with the world of hot. Up tonight, we have a great, amazing grower that is also a part of the Primo Wrecking crew here as our guest tonight. So we're going to be discussing with him growing, what it's like doing some product creation, why he got doing what he got doing, and how he got started, as well as so much more. So Bob Skrivan is going to be joining us here. So we're going to be diving into all of that, as well as we have 3 sauces on deck for Hot or Not tonight. These are from United Sauces. These are definitely going to be great ones to add to the lineup for your Halloween party. Sure to make a conversation starter happen, as well as being something that can be out on the table and beneficial for those individuals that may not have quite the spice tolerance, all the way to those that like to melt their face off. Let's go ahead and jump on over to Hot or Not. All right, hey, welcome into Hot or Not. Up tonight, we have 3 sauces on deck. These are all from United Sauces. This is the Halloween-themed lineup of hot sauces, sure to be great additions for your Halloween party. So still time to be able to order these, get those there, and really see who's going to take on these hot sauces. I do not like to do things in a 1 to 10 scale. I do things out of 1 out of 5. That's based off of 5 different categories. Those categories are heat, aroma, flavor, versatility, burn. Add those up, average them out. That gives us our total swear word rating. From there, I also do not like to read the ingredients ahead of time. I like to let my taste buds do the exploration. And what I pick up is what I end up letting everyone know, and then reread all the ingredients together and find out if I was right or if there was something that I was missing. Let's go ahead and jump on into the very first sauce. Killer Sauce Bonehead. And we have the Turn Before You Burn hot sauce. So love the overall 3D printed heads, the great visual pop that's really being able to be driven forward here. Great graphics on the labeling. Everything is enamoring and pulling you in. And even some of these features have, like functioning jaws and stuff. So it's pretty cool. Nice 3D print quality here. Not looking super thin or cheap or brittle. Everything is nice and hardy. So let's start with Killer Sauce first. Let me go grab my knife here so I can go ahead and get this taken off. And it is held on by a zip tie, so super easy to remove. And now I got a nice 3D printed head. And it still sits and holds and stays without the zip tie. Yes, this does have a perforation on the cellophane. Amongst these 3 sauces here, this is the one that has the darkest color to it. Oh, wow. Kind of a sweet, smoky note to this one. A little bit of garlic undertone. I want to say that's, I don't know, that smells more like tomato, but there's definitely a nice savory tomato undertone there with a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of smokiness. Overall, kind of smells like a nice spicy barbecue. So let's go ahead and give this a good pour. Nice hold on this. Definitely pouring out, looking like a more of a barbecue style. Little bits in there of seasoning, a little bit of pepper strands. Oh my goodness. All right, cheers. Oh yeah, crisp, good hold of flavor. I'm salivating like crazy over this. Nice, savory, smoky note there. Yes, does remind me a bit of like a barbecue style hot sauce, but it definitely has a nice punch. Nice little sting effect go around the mouth. So thinking still habanero on this one. As this is really starting to build, you're getting nice little undertones of what tastes like some onion, some garlic, some citrus, and a nice sweet depth of what tastes like maybe some tomato or something like that going on. Absolutely love this. Definitely one that easy go-to for anything like barbecue style, meat heavy, or lathering up on tacos. All your normal places, this is gonna be great. This only thing I wouldn't use it on is gonna be something in the realm of dessert. Not aimed for that. No worries, no harm, no foul. And read some ingredients here. Habanero peppers, carrots, onion, water, salt, lime juice, vinegar, tomato paste, garlic powder, and absorbic acid. Best of all, they're fitting of the theme, and they are a great option for being able to cater towards both spectrums of the overall heat tolerance, whether you're at a party and wanting just to add a little bit of heat to it. For somebody that can't handle it, just a little bit would go a long ways, as well as those individuals that are constantly pushing yourself, working on your own personal best. This one here is going to be a nice mild to medium, depending on where your tolerance is at. All right, heat coming in at a 3. We have aroma of 3.95. We have flavor of 3.87. Versatility of a 4. Burn of a 3 for a total swear word rating of 357. There we go. Another amazing sauce. Let's go ahead and jump on into this next one from United Sauces. We're going to do the turn before you burn hot sauce. This one does not have a perforation, so no harm, no foul. Use the knife. And the turn before you burn hot sauce, nice bright red overall tone to that. You're seeing a little bit of seed bits. It looks like it has a nice flow. Also seeing a little bit of chunks to this, so there's some mass to this sauce. I like that. Oh yeah, once it gets flowing, it gets going. Almost a thick and chunky style in there, but also a nice fine bit to it. This would looking like it would be great on tacos. Oh, before I get into that, beautiful aroma. Nice habanero body, being able to pick up, and I'm making a mess. Cheers. All right, so from a flavor standpoint, you're picking up the great habanero body there, but you're also getting some other tones of what feels like different burn characteristics. So it's not just the stinging. You're doing a little bit of a quick tongue sizzle that goes on there. It's not always indicative of a habanero, as well as really feeling a little bit more of a quick flash in that initial heat. So that's what makes me think that there might be something else going on in there with a different type of pepper, because the overall stinging sensation that normally comes through with a habanero is still present, but an initial different oomph to the heat. So it's able to be picked up in that sense. So I definitely think that there's something else added in that sense from a heat standpoint. So interested to see what other peppers might be in this one. Definitely picking up the salt notes, the little bit of the tomato, a little bit of the overall savory depth from, say, possibly onion or garlic in there. This one here I would be using more towards your tacos, your burritos. Probably wouldn't be putting this one on pizza. You definitely could, just with the fact that it has a little bit more of a run and a chunky texture as well. Those two don't tend to play so well on pizza, but utilizing this in things like soups, stews, sandwiches, stuff that could be able to hold the additional fluids as well as building upon what you're adding. Let's go ahead and read off some ingredients here. Habanero peppers, cayenne peppers, Tabasco peppers, carrots, salt, water, onion, lime juice, vinegar, tomato paste, absorbic acid, and garlic powder. All right, here we go. Heat coming in at a 2.85, aroma of 3.85, flavor of 3.65, versatility of a 4, burn of a 2.9, for a total swear word rating of 3.45. There we go. Another amazing sauce. Again, United Sauces. Let's check out this next one. Bonehead. And it does have a functioning jaw, which is pretty cool. Now, color-wise, this is slightly more brighter red than, say, Turn Before You Burn. This is the Bonehead hot sauce. No, it does not appear that there's a perforation on this, but no harm, no foul. Oh, beautiful. Nice, bright, vibrant habanero body. A little bit of what smells like onion, Let's go ahead and give this a good pour. Oh yeah, this one's much thicker, nicer hold. This is one that I can already tell you that would be great on pizza. It just has that hold. It has that stick that you need whenever you pick up your slice. It doesn't just ride off. So, cheers. Oh yeah, right off the bat, tasting what tastes like a little bit of tomato. You're getting some garlic there, or maybe that's onion. And then from that, it is a nice smooth cascade into that overall habanero body. Flavor profile really carrying forward. This one doesn't really have much of a mouth sting, like say the last two. There's just a very faint burn, little bit of sizzle, but that's about it. Heat coming in at 2.9, aroma of 3.85, flavor of 3.7, versatility of a 4, burn of a 2.9 for a total swear word rating of 3.47. There we go. Great sauce lineup here for a party where you're unfamiliar with how everyone else's tolerance is going to be, but you want to still be able to bring the spice and not have a boring party. This lineup right here is a great addition to that. Still plenty of time to be able to get these ordered and to you before all the Halloween parties kick off. If you enjoyed the sauces that were featured here tonight, I will have the direct links down below for those, as well as a link to the main site so you can check out the full lineup of amazing products from United Sauces. They have over 324 different spicy products for you to be able to pick, choose, build, and create your own spicy box. So head on over to United Sauces. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and jump on over to the interview. Hey, Bob, how's it going?
It's going good.
Glad to have you here. A long time coming. Something that, it's obviously so many different other growers from the Primo Wrecking Crew have been featured here, and wanting to kind of highlight, showcase all the great work and efforts that y'all put in, not only for the Wrecking Crew providing all the peppers and everything for the competitions, but you have a magnificent grow here and a very green thumb yourself, and always eager to continue to dive into the growers aspect of things. So honored to have you here.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And you'll see that I do have some different approaches to growing than the other guys you've interviewed.
Well, hey, that's always a good thing, because then that kind of gives people different perspective, different ideas of what may work for them in their given area versus, say, another method. So, great times
Right.
to be able to dive into that. So, one thing, though, I like to start out with, which is always the icebreaker the first time someone's on, which is what got you into the world of hot? And then what was the moment that you said, you know what, I'm going to start growing and making my own products?
Wow, that goes back a long time. I'll be 70 years old here in another couple of weeks, and it all started about 65 years ago.
Nice.
It I can remember as a kid, my dad had this thing for sardines doused with Tabasco sauce. And I can remember as a little kid reaching up to the dining room table and grabbing that bottle of Tabasco sauce. And I think I was pretty much addicted to hot stuff at the time I was 5, 6 years old. So from an early age, my family, we always had a garden. And since our family pretty much did like spicy foods, we always had jalapenos, serranos, poblanos, peppers like that growing up. Then in the early 70s, I started discovering the Asian type chilies, the Thai chilies, etc. And then mid 70s, late 70s, then I started getting into the habaneros, Scotch bonnets, those kind of peppers. Along about early 90s, 1990s, is when I discovered, first heard about the Savannah habanero. And I think that was kind of my doorway into going into the hotter and type peppers. I started growing the red Savannah early 90s. By 2000, early 2000s, I guess, is when the ghost pepper hit the scene, and it was just onwards from there. So over time, I've grown all sorts of different kinds of peppers, different heat levels, different phenos, etc. But then I settled on doing more of a cropping type grow, where I grow just three or four select types of peppers, so I produce enough to make sauces or powders or different products. So right now, I do about 450 to 500 plants per year, and this year I'm pretty much sticking with the prime three of red savannas, big bayou mamas, and the seven pot primo.
Very nice. Yeah, that that first of all, that grow is enormous. 400, 500 plants. That's a lot to handle. It's a lot to juggle. Knowing that you have this dedicated focus to your grows, I was like, while you probably have the vast knowledge in the different types of varieties, I feel like that would be a bit of a off the mark type of game build out. So yeah, glad that I held off on that because ultimately, yeah, I think what you're doing and your attention to focus on trying to really grow three different types of varieties and for reason, right? The idea behind it is very much lost on the masses these days. Throw myself in the ring as well on this, in the sense that I have so many things that I want to grow that I end up growing maybe one or two of each thing that I'm intending on growing instead of having a plentiful harvest off of set varieties. And I think that's something that ultimately is a turning point, is a switching of the mindset in the growers, those that go from like just sheer hobby to the ones that are like, I want to take this up to a more professional, standardized level, right? And it's really all about maintaining the quantity and quality. And you definitely have that nailed down. So kudos there.
Yeah.
Yeah, your sauces, your jams. There we go. Jams and your powders that you make have been absolute treat. Had the pleasure of trying some of those and enjoying those at the end of, I want to say last, I think it was last season or maybe that was the beginning of this year. Like, it's starting to run together in
Yeah.
between there too. But absolutely amazing, and the way that you are able to go about the smoking of those pods, it is absolutely phenomenal. It really carries through in a beautiful way on those powders.
Yeah, it's that's one of the things I really enjoy doing is smoking the powders and making the powders. And one of the woods that I use, well, the primary wood I use is pecan, and this guy right behind me here is one of my pecan trees. I have four of them that they periodically drop dead branches and they gift me with smoking wood.
There you go.
This guy, when I planted him, he was about a 2 foot tall sapling, and that was 39 years ago. So we've been in this house for 39 years, and I started developing my gardens from that point forward. So it's been a lot of years of love and development here.
Yeah, no, sounds like it. And yeah, to be able to, something, I guess, a little nod to some past podcast episodes, really highlighting the fact that there's literally everything that you need to grow at your fingertips for free from Mother Nature if you know how to utilize it. And that is a prime example there of being able to
Yep.
utilize what is offered from the land.
Right. And that's pretty much what I try to do is I utilize my my little it's just short of an acre of property, and I utilize everything I can off of it. The grass clippings, the leaves, I mulch up everything, and back behind me is my compost pile system back there. But I compost everything, and it's all part of the process of going into the gardens.
Very nice. Well, I might be answering my own question here since you just showed the compost pile, but where do you sit on do you utilize Jadam method at all? I know you said you're using the grass clippings and all that stuff. Have you tried to go that route, or are you just simply building towards a healthier compost?
I pretty much just build a healthy compost. I do a layering system. I put in a layer of grass clippings, and then in a separate bin, I have my leaves stored from the previous year. So I go grass clippings, a layer of leaves, throw in some wood ash from the smoker or from burning limbs, some kitchen compost, etc., goes into it. Then another layer of grass, then leaves. It's just kind of a building layer system. And
Absolutely.
so it's just I use all the natural products I got here at hand.
Nice. Well, and it's a great way to obviously minimize the amount of stuff that you're having to potentially lug to the curb for those individuals that are in the city and not able to if you have a threshold, a limit amount that you can put to the curb. I know some different counties, cities, etc., have different codes and guidelines. It's a great way to minimize what you're putting out there and be able to help put some of that beneficials back into the earth. So
Right.
super cool. Now, as far as your compost itself, is that the main thing that you utilize for the growth, the production, throughout the whole cycle of your growing, or is there some other techniques and methods that you work in?
That's a good question. In over after the fall frost and plants have died back and I clear the garden out, I pile all of my plants to one side and let them thoroughly dry out. And then while they're drying, I also have mussel shells that we gather from a local riverbank here, and we have 5 gallon buckets full of these mussel shells. So once the plants get dry enough, then I pull out my burn barrel, put the plants. I start feeding the plants in as it's burning, and the mussel shells and more sticks, and build that burn barrel up just full of nice glowing coals. Then real quick douse it with water. That way, what I build is an activated carbon and a charred mussel shell calcium source. Then I take that out, crush it up, and spread it all over my gardens. And then also spread my compost. If I got an area that seems to be a bit clay, I add a little bit of sand in there also. And I don't use a tiller. A lot of people go, huh? You don't turn your beds? I say, well, I do turn my beds, but not with a tiller. What I use is a broad fork. So I use a broad fork, jam it in, turn those clods over, and I do that across the course of the winter into the very early spring. And then it allows the time for that soil to kind of break down, break apart, and then it's ready for planting when it becomes springtime.
Very
Um,
nice.
so it's kind of like I have this philosophy is you don't want to overwork your soil. It's kind of like when you're baking bread, certain breads, you don't want to overwork the dough because then you get it too glutinous. It's the same thing with soil. If you overwork it, then the soil will collapse in on itself. All the particles will cling it together and go in and make a compact hard pan.
Hmm.
So you want to have that loose nature to your soil. You want to have it able to breathe. And also, you don't destroy all your good natural benefit worms and microbes in the soil. So it's you got to kind of handle the soil delicately. Some folks say it's an Iron Age method of tilling and gardening, but yeah, I guess I am kind of an old soul.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. While I have a smaller tiller, it's not one of the ones that you walk behind. It's one that you hold. I have that more for, actually, it's become more of a eat up the tear up the ground, if you will, eat up the grass in the areas that I'm trying to remove grass from and utilize
Right.
as a now growing area. But yes, to that same point, and I assume the soil, from what it sounds like, what you just described, is going to be very similar to kind of how it here is here in North Texas. A lot of clay, but at the same time, there's also some nice, healthy, rich soil areas. It's kind of a nice mix up. Then there will be this giant rocky patch, and it's a lot of digging out of those. And I had my fair share of that. And to that point of really being able to work in slash how you kind of cast everything towards the end of the season, whenever everything's cold. I've
Yeah.
tried different methods. I've tried I'm going to lay barrier cloth over it with cardboard, during the winter and really kind of help bake the soil, if you will. That method was fine. It didn't do great. There wasn't anything remarkable, at least on my end, that I found worth writing home about. Sure, it slowed slash stopped weed production, but to a small extent, I guess. But the thing that I've noticed that's worked the best is the areas, of course, that I'm doing the RCW method. That is tremendous. It's like a set it and forget it type of method and
Hmm.
mentality, because you're just really waiting for that first year and a half to have everything start to break down to really start feeding. But like the areas that I've done that here over the clay, when it breaks down and the fact that it brings out so many beneficial bugs, it ends up softening that soil so much that whenever I start to walk over it, I almost fall into it like a thick
Yeah.
fluff of snow. And it's the coolest thing ever. The
Yeah.
area that I have a raised bed, that it's just I got some railroad ties around it. It's a 16 by 8.5 section, and it's nice. But I've tried other methods there that is basically like just chop and drop and let it just whatever's there, let it sit there. And sure, it did great wonders for the soil, but I was chasing my tail at the beginning of the season when all those weeds and everything that had decided it wanted to take hold in there sprinkled in their seed. And it was just like a lot of clearing, a lot of hand tilling, as you're saying. I also use one of the forks, but I'll also use just a traditional hoe to kind of drag and scrape it out. But it's just the idea of having enough coverage with organic materials seems to work
Hmm.
way better than any kind of synthetic, any kind of like quick, fast, and easy method. And so, yeah, just more people I think need to do that.
Right, and that's pretty much my approach. I don't like using the ground covers, the weed barriers, etc. I would rather use natural mulches. I'm lucky in that matter, in that my local community has a work yard where people drop off brush, etc., and they grind it and pile it and compost it, and you can go pick up free compost. So it's just a matter of not being lazy and getting up there and shoveling up some free compost and bringing it home.
Yeah.
It's it's you can find it. It's easy to find. It's just you got to look around a little bit.
Yeah. I unfortunately in my city, it's not easily available and accessible like that. And there's tons of companies that have taken hold of the chance that they know that you can't just go get it for free. So then they sell, some just sell material. I wouldn't even really call it beneficial, but material.
Yeah.
And then others sell like some pretty good stuff. And so it's kind of, I ended up working out a deal. The same guy that's been cutting my trees since we moved into this home in 2018. He's also a fellow veteran, and he does great stuff. Most of his jobs are commercial. It's giant like people have giant pastures and land that are next to major roadways, and so they basically will need to get every so often the trees cleared up on the stuff that overhangs the public road, public access stuff. And so he'll
Right.
go cut through all that. And what I love about that is he says he saves the times that he knows that he's not going to be touching something that could have had chemicals or sprays or something, and he saves those jobs for a separate time, and so those two things don't cross contaminate. So then he'll come bring a whole truckload of ground down trees and a few stumps, and then I'll use the stumps for firewood, and then I'll just, like this last one, I think it was it was north of 20 yards, maybe 23, 24 yards of mulch
Mhm.
that I had to end up shoveling and loading and hauling. And it was a lot of work, but it was so satisfying afterwards. Like the whole journey through, it's like the whole idea of seeing something through to completion. It's very rewarding.
Right. And it's good to have those connections where the person is conscientious about sourcing the material that does not have the chemical exposure and the yard like leaves, etc. I gather leaves from some of my neighbors that I know that they don't spray their yards with weed killers and etc. There's a lot of folks around here that just let their yards go a la natural, so to speak,
Hmm.
so you don't have the chemicals. And I'll gather their leaves. I'll take their leaves and grass clippings, whatever. They say, yeah, we'll give it all to Crazy Bob. He'll take it. So
Well, no, once again, yeah, great time to be able to lean on friends in that manner. So definitely cool to see that kind of play out. The community aspect of it all is always great. And for
yeah,
those individuals that are just a quick nod to this, and we can jump back into the growing aspect. But for if you're watching and you're like, why does Bob give a very striking resemblance to Santa? Well, he is also a spicy Santa, if you will. So he's packing up those presents and delivering the hot peppers. So I guess so. When did you start? Because I know I've seen quite a few pictures. When did you start dressing up as Santa during the holidays?
it started about 5 years ago, about when I retired. Back at the start of the whole COVID scenario, at that point, I was reaching an age where I was contemplating retiring anyway. And one of the first people to die of COVID in St. Louis County happened to be a nurse in a hospital that I had been working in her office doing monitoring for mold. And 2.5 weeks later, I'm reading this article about her dying of COVID. I thought, okay. Next day, I went into my office and I filed my retirement papers. I said, I'm done. But I had been in the environmental consulting business, and up to that point, clean shaven and short cut hair.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, when I retired, the beard started growing. And so about 5 years ago, I decided, well, I've got this natural look here. What the heck,
Yep.
So, and it tailed in. Basically, it was another item that we used in our business, which Death Spiral Pepper Sauce Company. We are a not-for-profit corporation, and what we do is we raise funds for the American Cancer Society and also for various missions and charities like the Pepper Tribe of Sierra Leone. I don't know how many people out there have heard about them, and Chris Gupenberger here in the United States, but we try to help out this tribe in Sierra Leone with farming practices, development of a school. They have built a school. We're trying to help them along the way on education with farming and methods. It has been very rewarding, and they have come a long way in what they're doing over there. But anyway, off the subject there. Um, Death Spiral Pepper Sauce Company. So our proceeds from what we do sell, which is mostly fresh pods during season, have some contracts with some local Mexican bodegas that they love the red sabinas. So I sell a lot to them and various other sales through the internet. Those funds go towards American Cancer Society. And then in the fall, when I start producing the pepper powders, what revenue I make off of those will also be split between American Cancer Society and the Pepper Tribe of Sierra Leone.
That is very cool. It's always something that's talked about as the idea of like not only the community building within the actual chili head community itself, but now it's like a ripple effect outside of that, and being able to actually see, help, and be the difference in like simply with the just focusing on the agricultural education aspect. There was someone that whenever I first decided to journey down the path of switching away from synthetic fertilizers is whenever I started to find others that were teaching about what soil building meant and so on and so forth. And there was this one, gosh, and her name is escaping me. I want to say it's Elaine. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But she ended up doing something similar. She put on this master class thing, but like everything that she would bring in for teaching other growers in the United States, she would utilize that money to help educate in other countries about like, best farming practices, ways to build up the soil that don't, cost an arm and a leg, and being able to utilize what is around you in order to continue to sustain that. And
Right.
I always thought that was just so cool. And so to hear that here, you knocking this out and doing this is amazing. And so I guess you were saying that's the carryover between the two, dressing up as Santa and then also being able to help have that kind of, I guess, secondary arm of whenever it's not, Christmas, being able to have that arm of continuing the fundraising aspect.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Very
And
cool.
we also supply free pods for the League of Fire on their belt matches and competitions. That's something that's just developed over the last couple of years, and I really enjoy doing that. I feel like I'm giving back to the pepper community. I'm giving them something that gives them a challenge going into these competitions, and it also helps the League of Fire have certain standards of peppers that they know will be available for the different matches. They'll
Hmm.
have their 7-pot primos, they'll have the big Bayou Mamas, and the red Savannah. So it's kind of like 3 different levels of heat that they know that they can depend on that'll be available for those matches. And then the rest of the wrecking crew, we all pitch in, and they have all these other crosses and other peppers that will fill in all the different heat variables and heat levels and flavors and you name it. So we can usually put together quite a range of how would you put it, challenge.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, the to see the amount of events that y'all have been able to pull together and be able to help supply pods for is absolutely amazing. The most recent one, you bring in over all those 7-pot primos for that world record, and it's just like when you showed up with that haul of pods, did you expect
Yep.
that many to be consumed that day? Or did you think, like, there's no way we even get through a quarter of what's here?
Well, I brought a whole bunch because, first of all, I intended to have a bunch more available for Shahina and Paul to take back with them to Europe. But I pretty much knew Stephen Kurgan was going to knock out a good 70, 80, maybe even hit 100 pods. I was hoping he'd hit that 100 mark, but 80, 85,
Yep.
85 was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Now I can't remember. Was that I remember watching it, but I'm trying to recall. Was there a time limit that it had to be consumed during?
Well, it was kind of like two stages in that contest. The first was 1 minute, how many pods they could eat in 1 minute time, which Stephen put down 19 pods in 1 minute. And then it was just, he went from that point just to see how many he could consume. There was no time limit on that.
That part's very interesting. So, having it being a dual stage thing, you have the approach of, if you don't chew it well enough, all of us chili heads that eat super hots are well aware that if you don't chew up, pulverize, and really just get that pepper as small as you can before you swallow it, it's going to end up disrupting the stomach faster, harder, and longer.
Yeah.
So that first minute, throwing down 19 primos that I'm sure he could have potentially chewed a little bit longer, that compounded in the overall difficulty later on for that full 85 push. So
Right.
yes, definitely hats off. That is intense. That is wild. To your point, I definitely think Steven would be the person that I could think of. Maybe there's 2 or 3 other names in that hat that I could see really crossing that 100 7-pot primo threshold, but still, just 85 is insane, wild.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll see. Maybe next year we'll have an event where it'll be just sit down and then go at it and see how many you can consume total. He might do better in that scenario. Uh, I think him and Dean need to go up against each other.
Yeah.
Dean held the previous record of 77, so yeah, I'd love to see those two big boys go after each other.
Yeah. No, that would be a lot of fun. There's a few people that obviously there's a lot of people that I would like to sit down at a competition next to and eat pods with. But knowing that I don't think me and Steven have ever actually crossed paths in person. So both of these individuals, both those individuals you just named, would be definitely ones to of just utmost excitement to be able to enjoy peppers next to at a table. It's a uphill battle if you're not one of those individuals, but it is definitely a fun one because while I may not be overtly competitive, there still is that whole desire of, well, if someone else is still going, then you know what, I'm going to keep going. So that aspect would be fun. And I would also be curious to see how far they inherently make me want to push myself around. So, and you need people like that in the community. You need people that excite, invigorate, and want to make others like kind of thrive and push forward. Because it's real easy. It's human nature to fall into your own personal comfort zones and go, yeah, I could, but why would I? And then you just kind of back out of doing something that would be pretty cool and that that you could easily do, just kind of pushing yourself to the next step. Not talking the not the 85 peppers, but just the idea of like pushing past that barrier of discomfort.
Right.
So, but yeah, no. So from that point, it's like, all these competitors that you have seen start to come up and into the fold. You got Blaze for the Brave just knocking on the door here. And that's going to be a massive event that's going to have all kinds of, I think I heard it was 3 different belts in that, or 3 different matches within that one event, or 2. I can't remember, 2 or 3.
I think there's 2. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at least 2. There might be some other
maybe I'm
side
thinking
things going on.
yeah, maybe I'm thinking of maybe that was roping in the amateur, the belt match, the world title. So okay, maybe I'm getting it all twisted up and mixed up there. But as far as the competitors that have come onto the scene, now we've talked about 2 there, but have you started to like have you first and foremost, have you been amazed by being caught off guard, or is it now become a almost an expectation to be caught off guard by someone sitting at that table?
Oh yeah, it is just phenomenal. These people that it's like they come out of the woodwork. The Houston belt match, the guy that won that, it was just kind of like, where did he come from? you know,
Yep.
nobody had heard of him before. So it was, and I'm glad to see it. And he was enthusiastic. He was, when he won that, he was jumping around holding that belt up. That was phenomenal. I'm glad to see such enthusiasm.
Absolutely. It was great to be able to be at that match because even before the whole thing got started, I was like, I look around at the people that had signed up and I'm just like, well, I know Naughty, and I was like, but everyone else is a new face. And so it was like
Yeah.
it was exciting, it was invigorating to see like new competitors at the table like wanting to do the thing. And obviously, we had found out through the way that there's some that had also been doing other competitions or like different iterations of competitions. And so like it wasn't completely fallen off the radar for them, but now they have this continued avenue of being able to start looking for League of Fire events and continue on their own growth and journey. And yeah, I can't wait to see how this whole overall America's belt goes. So that's going to be a lot
Right.
of fun too.
And we see League of Fire growing so much across the United States, not to mention what's going on in Europe and South Africa and Australia and New Zealand. It's worldwide now, but just focusing here in North America, look at all these different Road to belt matches we have now. We got Fire in the Mountain down in Arkansas. We've got Wabash Valley and Terre Haute. We've got the Houston one this year. Just name a few of the new ones, and
Mm-hmm.
also coming up in another 2 weeks, 1 week and a half, 2 weeks. We've got one out in California that's going to be a new one. Um, so it's growing. It's just growing across this country, and we're seeing more people coming out and joining in because they've heard and they see and go, well, gee, I've always liked hot food. I'm getting into these hot peppers. Let's see how far I can push myself.
Yep.
I'm just so happy to see all this going on.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, something that we talked about earlier that also kind of plays into what we're talking about now, which is the idea of like your overall product development, whether that be with the powders or the jams. Are you like, what's the creative thought process behind this? First of all, second question, where does your personal heat tolerance, where do you like to reside on a daily consumption basis?
Development. We incorporated Death Spiral in 2015. And that's after I had been dabbling in making hot sauces and powders and candies, various products since the late 1990s, thereabouts. Um, we were involved with the local American Cancer Society fundraising events at our local school district. There was an event that we did every year, and we would sell the hot sauce and the powders or whatever we had available or made, and as fundraisers for American Cancer Society. So when we incorporated in 2015, that was just a natural rollover to go incorporate as a not for profit, as a fundraiser. That was our whole intention. I've never been in this to make money. Unlike some individuals out there that dollar sign is their god, that's not a matter to me. I'm just trying to help people raise awareness and develop products that people love, they want more of, and that's pretty much how our product development came about. Is a testing. It was kind of like, well, what if I do this? If I design a hot sauce with uh, like a mustard and mango and Scotch bonnet, let's put this together. Let's try this out. Let's see how this works. And then I'd trot it out amongst a lot of people and say, what do you think of this? And that was one of my earliest sauces that I made. It was called Jamaica Jammin'. And I mean, it went like crazy. Everybody wanted more and more of it. Um, but over the years, I got out of the hot sauces and went more to the powder productions. Started playing around with my smoker, started smoking peppers, and started making the smoked pepper products. Found that that was a big thing with particularly the barbecue scene. People that wanted to put together their own rubs, make rubs, etc., that had a good spice to it. So we kind of went down that path with the powders and the jellies and jams. That's just kind of a holdover from my grandmother. I can remember when my brother and I were little, my grandma would give us each a big pan and say, "Go out there and fill this with blackberries, and don't come home until it's full." So, so we would be out there all day long picking blackberries and bringing them home to grandma so that she could make her jellies and pies and stuff. So it's kind of like a love of the berry jams, etc., came from my grandmother.
Very nice. Yeah, yeah. It's always fun. Like I know my grandmother was a big influence to me as far as like wanting to learn how to cook or how ingredients play together. You know what works, what complements, what doesn't work, all these things. But the involvement, the majority of people that you talk to that are like whether they be chef driven, just cooking enthusiasts, whatever, the bulk of it seems to resonate with a very similar upbringing, right? Someone in the
Right.
family kind of brought that on. The other, less frequent but common response seems to be more or less like, well, no one else in my family knew how to cook, and so had X amount of brothers and sisters, and I had to, figure this whole thing out. Both paths are just, forged in different ways, but ultimately end in the same result. But it's so cool to have those core memories to really like bring back to, because like I know with my own grandmother, with her not being here anymore, it's like, it's those things that still hit and hold deeply, and it gives you that kind of peace in that moment of like being there with them again. So
Right.
it's always super cool. And whenever you're able to create a product that also derives and inspires that same feeling, you got a winner. So yeah.
That's kind of funny because when you say that, there's so many times I'll be cooking something and kind of falling back to an old recipe, and a smell or a taste just sets off a memory in me of my grandmother's kitchen. It's just kind of like, I think I hit it here.
Yep. 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 Ah, it gets me. It gets me still to this day. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Something you mentioned now a few times that I did want to ask, and once again, I think I might be answering my own question here. As far as your smoker choice, are you the a classic smoker, or do you one of the new age set it and forget it smokers?
Ah, I'm a classic smoker. And let me preface that with, you ever see these barbecue competitions, these professional barbecuers out there? What do they use? They use your wood chunk grill smokers, barbecue pits, etc. They go with the natural whole wood. I have never had any use for pellets or electric or anything like that. What I use is a Dynaglow box type smoker with a side fire chamber, and you can put big chunks of wood in there. And like I said, the pecan wood back here, that's one of my major fuels, and it's got that unique pecan flavor that it gives to the peppers.
Yeah, and it carries over so beautifully. But I'm right there with you. I also am a purist in the sense that I have to have a traditional smoker. Yes, I think that the electric or pellet one or whatever is a good workaround if you don't have the time, dedication, or know-how. But if you already know how to do this, you're familiar with how you need to run your rig. I'm all for the idea of just staying with the. I mean, it's a fun time. Like you wake up, you're going to be waking up early. You're going to be starting the smoker, or you start it at night, and then you kind of pull a nice long night to kind of get things rolling. Maybe take set a reminder or a alarm on your phone. Take a quick power nap
Yep.
between times of tending to the overall smoker. But I like the ritual. Now, granted, there's not much else left to be done for the day. I'll try to time these whenever I'm doing yard work, anyways. So then I can be out there, kind of in close proximity. Okay, oh, I need to go back over there. But yeah, I while pecan is definitely one that I have used, I tend to lean a lot more towards like apple wood, or we had a plum tree in my backyard, and I have tons of plum wood, and so I'll
Hmm.
use that. I'll use fig every so often, but fig kind of gets a little bit bitter, and so I try
Yeah.
not to use that often. I'll use that more for the fire pit, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, almost all the fruit wood trees provide good smoking wood. Your apple, your cherry, your pear. They're all pretty good smoking woods. Um, Black cherry or wild cherry, that is one of my favorites for doing sausage and fall bacon sausage type smoking.
very nice. Yeah, I wish I had more exposure with different types. But I've just had, the main core staples of the mesquite, the hickory, the, apple wood, the pecan, and yeah, plum and fig. But that's about it. I can't think of if there's been any other. I mean, I've tried at one point the soaked in like whiskey or bourbon chips and all
Yeah.
this other stuff. That's it sounds great in concept, but it doesn't really carry forward that overall effect that you're wanting. You're better off just putting a little bit of that in the water tray at the bottom, mix a little bit of whiskey or bourbon with that water and hope for the best. It's basically what you're doing, anyways, by pre soaking those chips from an effect standpoint.
Yeah. Another wood I've tried before, a friend of mine out in Arizona sent me some almond wood. And almond makes a pretty good smoking wood too, but it's just something that's not available here in the Midwest that much.
Yeah, I've never even heard of that. That's pretty wild to think of. I wonder if it's a lighter or like how the overall notes that kind of carry forward with that.
um, it's kind of a cross between the nutwood type trees, hickory, uh, with a bit of fruity wood type tone. It's kind of a lighter hickory fruit wood type flavor.
Okay. So it probably goes pretty well without disrupting a lot of whatever you might be cooking. As to where there's some that it's like, you definitely mesquite. It's like if you use mesquite,
Yeah.
you better use it for certain reasons. That's not one you want to just cross do everything. So
Yeah. There's one time I used mesquite many years ago, and I thought I'd done thrown a railroad tie in there. It was horrible.
oh man. Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, some of those smoking experiences with certain woods definitely certain woods need to be more dried than others in order to have a desirable taste that's kind of baked in, cooked in, if you will, to the overall meats or whatever you're doing. But yeah, learn that the hard way as well. Trying to utilize a fresh tree or semi-fresh tree, and it wasn't dry enough, or it hadn't been aged enough, if you will. So as far as your, you've been growing different types, whether it be peppers, etc. You've just been growing in different methods and trying all these things. Have you found certain methods that just absolutely you would never recommend to anyone else? And then has there been one that kind of caught you off guard and it became, something that you use in your arsenal every day?
Um, well, early on, before I really started developing my beds, there's been a few seasons where I planted in some pretty heavy clay soils without too much organics in it. And that was sad. I mean, very small little plants, and they had a hard go of it even growing. So at the same time, I had some compost to the side that I was starting to work into my beds, and I had volunteer plants come up in that compost. And I was watching how well those grew. It's kind of like, okay, let's put two and two together here. This is the reason why we mix all this compost in here, you know. So yeah, that I recommend that don't go with a straight heavy clay soil. You need something to develop it up. You got to have drainage. You got to have some sand mixed in, or some at least a coarse sand, kind of like a pea gravel almost. What's really good is up here in the Midwest, they sell these big tubular socks of sand for the wintertime for putting in the back of your truck or your vehicle for traction. And those things are normally filled with this coarser sand. That stuff is perfect. That's what you want in your garden because it's a little bit more granular. It allows more air space in the soil, allows more drainage. So you get more air movement, more drainage, and it's a lot looser for the roots and the soil for the plants. So you need more coarser sand and that compost. I mean, the organics are very important. Just keep layering in those organics is when you get them. And over the years, I built a series of beds, and I just keep building them up and building them up. So it's not really a raised bed, but they're just kind of like elevated into terraces. I have they're 8 by 32 foot, and there's eight of them staged out. The center one is the highest, and they all just kind of descend a little bit from that. So I have good natural drainage. That's another thing is you got to have drainage. You got to have good natural drainage. Although the last 5 or 6 years with the drought we've had here, I guess that really doesn't matter. But in the years where you're getting a lot of rain or a lot of water, etc., you don't want your plants standing there with their feet in the water constantly. You got to have the drainage. You got to allow that. My planting, that's one thing I didn't cover is my planting mix. When I'm going to put the plants in the holes, um, I use one of these tools called a dirt weasel, where you just stick it in the ground and twist it, and it pulls out a clump of dirt. So it makes a perfect planting hole. And then I throw a couple of tablespoons of my planting mix in there, which is a mix of bone meal, blood meal, wood ash, espoma. Um, what is that? It's an espoma brand fertilizer that has your organics, your microbes in it, and then trace elements. You got to have your trace elements. So I mix in some green sand and azomite. Um, so I mix that together, and I put a couple of tablespoons of that in each of the holes as I'm planting the plants, and that's it. The rest of the year, I don't add any more fertilizer to the plant. It's just keeping up with the watering, keeping it alive with watering, basically. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention when I'm first turning over my soil in the spring, this is the one point where I cheat not being organic. I lay in some 12 12 12 or 13 13 13, whatever your basic balanced fertilizer.
Mm-hmm.
I just broadcast I just broadcast some of that across the garden. That's the only thing I do that I stray from being totally organic.
Very nice. Yeah, no, I mean, I've heard that from a lot of folks that they will utilize something like that, a nice base, even spread, and they'll just do that to kind of either some will use it to help keep the soil just enriched, if you will, during the downtime, and then I've
Yeah,
heard others that they'll do it a month or so before they get ready to plant. So I guess there's, trade-offs depending on what you're trying to end goal achieve. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, proof right there from you with your amazing grows that this works. Many others do this as well, and they have great success. So if you're having struggles with your soil, whether it be too clay esque, utilize some of these great alternatives and methods that Bob has mentioned. And I think that ultimately everything that you're saying is stuff that I've either tried to apply or or I currently apply a slightly different iteration. One of the things that you mentioned with
right.
the shells, we'll do crawfish boils here, and I will
Yeah,
grab the dead bodies of the crawfish, and I'll do the same thing. I'll prep the fire. I'll get the fire to a certain heat, and then I throw in all the bodies. It almost puts the whole fire out. And then from there, it just lets the embers, the ash, everything just kind of slow sizzle and roar on that. And it just it puts some of the bodies don't look as broken down as others, but it's the same thing. So those bigger pieces are there as acting as like a soil disruptor, soil airway agitator, if you will. And then the rest is feeding it. And obviously, those other larger pieces break down slower over time. So it kind of has a little bit of a trade off effect, if you will. Some more readily accessible nutrients versus some that are going to just take a while to get in there.
right.
So, and yeah, that's been a huge help for between that and then just, biochar, working that into the soil. Obviously, biochar, you have to be extremely careful not to overdo, because if you overdo, then you're chasing a whole nother problem. But
Right.
utilizing that, free resources, and, putting them to use, putting them back into the earth. But,
Mhm.
uh, you know,
Exactly.
I,
Just keep your eyes open. It's kind of like every day I'm looking around and it's going, how can I utilize this? There's always ways. There's always things you can do with the materials in your own backyard.
absolutely. Absolutely. Very well said. Here's the chance. Obviously, you were nominated for the hot seat. Here's the chance for you to put someone else on the hot seat. So, this is someone that you think would make a great guest for the show.
Well, I'm not certain who all you may have had on there before, but there's somebody that I have recently been doing a lot of work with, and I feel he's a very good up and coming hot sauce manufacturer, David Gingras, Beans Hot Sauce. Have you interviewed him?
Yep, he's come on once before. We're actually in the talks right now of having him come back on here very soon. So, spoiler alert for everyone, there will be another Beans Hot Sauce episode coming up. Thank you so much for that nomination. Once again, this next part is greatly beneficial for those individuals that are on Apple Podcast only, where they have or where they only have audio on Apple Podcasts. So, if you're on Apple Podcasts, you want to catch the video, head on over to YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, check it out there. But where can they find you? How can they find you? And anything you want to let those that are watching and listening know?
We really don't have a website, but we are on Facebook. We have our own page, Death Spiral Pepper Sauce Company. And if you want to email, it's deathspiralsauceco@gmail.com.
It cut out right there at the .com, but .com is the end of that. And so, once again, thank you so much for being here, Bob. It has been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, we still have so much more we can talk about. There's still so much more to talk about from a growing aspect, as well as just all the fun things that there's a lot of similar, it sounds like, crossovers in things that you're passionate about and have an interest in that obviously matters to me as well. And so would love to have you back on and dive a little bit deeper.
Okay. All right. That sounds excellent.
Bob, thank you so much for coming on. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. If you would like to keep up with Bob and Death Spiral, I will have everything linked down below for him as all the ways that you kind of get engaged, pick up some fresh peppers throughout the season, etc., and be able to support a good cause along the way. If you would like to pick up the sauces that were featured here tonight from United Sauces, I'll have the direct links down below for all three of those, as well as a link to the main site so you can check out the full lineup of amazing products. Don't forget, right around the corner, we have the North Texas Hot Sauce Fest that is knocking at the door. If you are in Texas, around the Texas area, and you're able to make it out, head on out there. It's going to be an absolute blast, featuring and showcasing hot sauce makers from all over Texas, and it's going to be great fun family event, as well as there's going to be at Martin House Brewing, there's going to be a hot sauce beer out there. So if you're a drinker, if you like to check those out, that will be there as well. And as well as we have the Dallas belt match coming up on the 25th of this month. If you're able to make it out that way, want to watch a pepper competition, watch a wing competition, maybe you want to join one of those two, highly recommend you heading on over there, signing up for that. It's going to be an absolute blast. I look forward to seeing everyone at both of those events. We have sponsorship opportunities available. If you're looking to sponsor the podcast, have a featured segment, have a sponsored segment, reach on socials or reach out via website and we will get that squared away. Shout out for the current sponsors here, podvision.io. If you're looking to grow your brand, start your brand, you hit a bump in the road, you're trying to figure things out, highly recommend checking out podvision.io for all of those needs, as well as webdx.one. Maybe have a site, maybe have an online website that you had a guy at one point, you lost basis, or maybe you never got around to building one. Highly recommend that you check out webdx.one. They make it simple, painless, and easy, and best of all, you get to focus on what you do best while they get you looking great online. I'm Brandon Swear, and from everything from the world of hot, this has been The Swear Word.